Good afternoon and welcome to our midday briefing today, here in the room, online and live on EBS. We are Tuesday, the 3rd of August. I'm sorry for the delay, and as you can see, we have a slight issue with the lighting here. The lighting also thinks it's August and it's minimum service, so we hope to get it arranged as soon as possible, but we continue in the meantime. We have one announcement for you today on the next major step to drive the recovery in our member states, and for that I'll give the floor to Ariana, please.
And everyone, I hope you can hear me and see me. So indeed, la Commission a versé aujourd'hui le premier préfinancement à la Belgique, 770 millions d'euros, au Luxembourg, 12,1 millions d'euros et au Portugal, 2,2 millions d'euros, ce qui correspond à 13% du montant total alloué à ces pays au titre de la facilité pour la reprise et la résilience. Il s'agit d'une étape importante pour la mise en œuvre de réformes et investissements cruciaux décrits dans les plans de relance et de résilience des États membres. Nous prévoyons de poursuivre les versements de préfinancement à d'autres États membres tout au long du mois d'août, dès que les États membres auront achevé les procédures nationales pertinentes leur permettant de finaliser la convention de financement et de prêt avec nous.
Merci beaucoup, Ariana. Et maintenant, on va commencer avec les questions. Et on va commencer avec les personnes dans la salle, s'il vous plaît.
Poland and the rule of law. Is the Commission satisfied with the recent announcement by the Polish government concerning the judiciary chamber and possible changes in Polish laws? What's your assessment of that?
Thank you very much. I would pass the floor on to Adalbert, who is replacing Christian this week.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, in fact. I'm afraid you're going to have to be a little bit more specific about which announcements you mentioned. I don't have anything new particular to add as of today to our action on the Polish rule of law issue.
The Polish Prime Minister yesterday said that the government is willing and able to change some of the laws, parts of the laws, to comply with demands from the Commission. So I was wondering if the Commission is already in the process of accessing these new twists and turns.
I understand. Our dialogue with the Polish authorities continues. However, I will not be able to provide a blow-by-blow account of the discussions that we are having with the Polish authorities.
Thank you. Would you have any more questions on the rule of law issues? I check online as well. I see that Christian has his hand up. Christian, c'est sur l'état de droit?
Excuse-moi, c'est même pas Stoltenberg.
Excuse-moi, on t'a pas entendu.
Oui, mais Marc, il fait des alertes sur tout. Il a raison de dire qu'il faut faire des alertes sur tout et poser la question. Après, il y en a qui justifient, d'autres qui ne justifient pas. C'est un truc qui a 3 jours, tu vois. Si on n'a toujours même pas de réponse de l'UE, quoi. Moi, je pense que ça s'envoie pour le PG, tu vois.
Je pense qu'on n'est pas exactement dans la même discussion pour le moment. Donc, I will pass the floor on to Maria Wisniewska. And please keep your hand up if your question is about the rule of law. Please, Maria. Could you check your mic source, please, Maria? Because we can see you, but we cannot hear you. Try now, because we have an echo.
Does it work now?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Yes, it is about the rule of law in Poland. I would like to ask you when the EU Commission plans to formally extend the recovery plan, considering it already passed the deadline last week.
Thank you. Well, we will come back to that later. We'll now see if there are any questions on the rule of law issue. That's on the recovery, so we'll come back to that. Thank you. On the rule of law, Fabio, please.
To Fabio's.
Ah, yes. First, Fabio. Fabio Fantazzi, I think it was. No, also mic issue, so we take the next Fabio, and Fabio Napoli, please.
Yes, hi. Thank you for the floor. This is Fabio Napoli for Policy Europe News Agency. I have a question about rule of law in Hungary, because this morning the Minister of Justice of Hungarian government published a tweet with a document where the government strongly criticized the rule of law report made by the Commission. So just to know what the position of the Commission on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fabio. I'm afraid I'm going to have to disappoint you again. As you know, it is a long-standing policy in our press room that we do not engage in a commentary on political commentary, especially by national authorities. Our dialogue with the national authorities is more direct than a dialogue via the media, and therefore I will not be able to give you a comment on a tweet in the press room right now.
Thank you, Adalbert. To Paola, please, now. I think you don't have your hand up anymore. So, Maria, do you now have a question on the rule of law? Or
the EU Commission has warned several Polish regions it would withdraw its funding if these regions don't change their anti-LGBT policies. I would like to ask you what funding exactly are we talking about, and maybe more importantly, how the Commission can make sure.
I think we got caught in there. Would you like to try again, Maria? Just continue. We got caught in between. Just
Does it
continue
work?
with your last. Yes, it's fine. Please.
Okay, I don't know when it stopped. It was about the EU Commission warning several Polish regions that it would withdraw the EU funding if these regions won't change their anti-LGBT policies. I would like you to talk more about that and maybe reveal what funding are we talking about and how the Commission can make sure it doesn't penalize the sub-regions that didn't adopt these policies but are still part of these regions. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. It's a pretty long-standing story, so maybe I will just refer to the last steps in this, which is really the infringement procedure that the Commission adopted in July about this issue. As you know, the Commission started looking into the issue of the impact of the so-called LGBT ideology-free zones adopted as resolutions by Polish municipalities and regions back in 2019. As soon as the resolutions were adopted, we were in contact with the Polish authorities at that point to seek further clarifications on these resolutions and their impact, and we have also received complaints from individuals and from organizations. Now, to take any legal steps, it is critical to gather all available facts and have a comprehensive legal analysis, and this is why in February we sent a letter to the Polish authorities with specific questions to feed into our analysis. In order to, despite our clear call, Poland has failed to provide the requested information which is necessary for the Commission to complete its analysis on possible violations of EU law, and as a result the Commission decided to send a letter of formal notice to Poland for lack of cooperation from the Polish authorities. So that is where we stand now on this particular issue. The Polish authorities must send a detailed reply within the next 2 months, and we will then evaluate that reply and take next steps as appropriate.
Thank you. And when the question was about which funding we're talking about, it's the EU structural and investment funds. Paola, we will try now with you again. Please, go ahead. There seems to be an issue with the...
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. My question is for Arianna, I believe, and it relates to discussions ongoing between the Italian government and Unicredit for the sale of state-controlled bank Monte dei Paschi. And
sorry,
there are press reports.
I will cut you in between because we will come back to you then later. We are now having the questions for Adalbert on the rule of law. I see that there are no more questions on the rule of law, I believe. While we have you here, we will also check if there are any questions on migration and security issues. Yes, Jacobo, please.
Hi, I hope you can hear me. Okay. Adalbert, I have a question. I don't know whether it's for you or actually for Peter Stan or somebody for the external service, because my question is on Lithuania and on these arrivals of flights from Iraq. And my question, but again, probably it's more for the external service than for you, is why so far the EU hasn't been able to stop these flights, and which initiatives are being taken with Iraq to achieve the goal of stopping the flights. Thanks.
Thank you, Jacopo. Actually, having checked very briefly with Nabila, I think she's comfortable with me taking the question from both angles. So, first of all, about the flights themselves, as you know, the whole situation at the Belarusian-Lithuanian border is of concern to the EU, and we have repeatedly rejected the instrumentalization of migrants by the Belarusian regime. The flights are an aspect of that issue. Yesterday, when Commissioner Johansson was in Lithuania, she was also asked about the increase in flights that has recently been announced, and she replied that she found that issue also rather upsetting. When it comes to our efforts with the Iraqi government in order to address this issue together, Nabila was able to reply to a question some middays ago about a first phone call between the High Representative and the Iraqi Foreign Minister, where this issue was raised. And our contacts with the Iraqi government continue in a fairly intensive fashion. And we will, of course, carry on working with our Iraqi partners on this. I can also perhaps recall that the Commission recently in July proposed to the Council a measure regarding visas, a restrictive measure on a number of countries, including Iraq, with the objective to improve the cooperation with the EU and the member states on the issue of readmission. That is also a key aspect of the management of the situation at the Lithuanian-Belarusian borders.
Thank you very much. So we'll continue on the migration issues. Please keep your hand up raised if it's on migration. We'll try again. On va essayer avec Christian de nouveau.
Oui, moi je vais passer à un autre sujet. Je voudrais savoir, Adalbert, si vous avez reçu une lettre de la Belgique et de plusieurs autres États membres dans laquelle ils expriment leurs préoccupations face à un afflux de réfugiés en provenance d'Afghanistan, où la situation dans ce pays se détériore très sérieusement, préoccupe tout le monde. Je suis d'ailleurs assez surpris de voir que l'Union européenne n'a aucune réaction là-dessus, mais bon, ça c'est un autre secteur. Donc je voudrais savoir si vous avez reçu cette lettre. Ils demandent comment faire face à cet afflux, Donc, je voudrais savoir si vous avez une réponse à leur apporter pour faire face à cet afflux. Et le secrétaire d'État aux migrations belge a évoqué la possibilité d'étendre l'accord qui a été conclu entre l'UE et la Turquie pour les réfugiés syriens aux réfugiés afghans. Je voudrais savoir si c'est quelque chose qui est envisageable et à quelles conditions. Merci à toi.
Merci beaucoup, Christian. Concernant la lettre en tant que telle, je vais devoir vérifier avec les collègues pour savoir où exactement nous en sommes, pour pouvoir confirmer à 100% qu'elle a déjà bien atteint la Commission. Enfin, et ensuite, concernant la question des potentiels réfugiés afghans, je pense que je ne peux pas apporter beaucoup d'éléments très concrets de réponse à ta question. Évidemment, l'Union européenne a une politique de migration qui est déjà en place, mais aussi en développement. Nous avons proposé notamment le nouveau pacte sur la migration et l'asile que tu connais, je pense, relativement bien, qui comprend toute une panoplie de mesures qui permettraient à l'Union européenne d'être préparée à toutes sortes de situations concernant la gestion des migrations. Donc nous travaillons de manière très intense avec la présidence du Conseil et le Parlement européen pour mettre tout cela en place le plus rapidement possible. Concernant la situation en Afghanistan, c'est aussi une question qui a été soulevée au midday briefing il y a quelques semaines, et Peter a expliqué à ce moment-là que notre priorité était d'agir avec l'Afghanistan et avec les pays voisins en premier lieu. Et enfin, concernant la déclaration UE-Turquie, notre priorité est la mise en œuvre intégrale de cette déclaration. Elle demeure valable. Et tu comprendras que je ne pourrais pas, au détour d'une réponse, t'annoncer la direction à suivre concernant le futur de notre coopération avec la Turquie sur la migration. C'est une question extrêmement importante sur laquelle nous travaillons, mais je n'ai pas d'annonce particulière à faire à ce stade.
Merci, Adalbert. We will continue with those. I see, Jacopo, that you have a follow-up on your previous question on migration. Please.
We had a Foreign Affairs Council last month, I believe, where there was the Iraqi foreign minister, but a month later the number of flights, it seems that is increasing. So my question is, first of all, which are the tools that we are using, the EU is using with Iraq to try to convince them to stop the flights? And I'm talking about the flights more than readmission. And which are these tools, and what have been the replies so far from Iraq? Because again, a month later, the number of flights is increasing. It seems hard to describe this as a great success. Thanks.
Thank you, Jacopo. Speaking under the control of Nabila, I'm afraid I don't think I will be able to detail the specifics of our diplomatic efforts with a third country. Our diplomacy takes place directly between us and the partners, and not via the press. And I'm afraid at this point I will have to leave it at that.
Thank you. We will now continue on this issue of migration and we go to Angela, please.
Good morning. Actually, it is on Belarus, but not on migration. So I don't know if it's
I'll come back to in a moment.
Okay.
Come back to in a moment. Naomi, you're still on that aspect?
Yeah, thanks for taking my question. Naomi O'Leary, Irish Times. It's on the migration situation on the border of Belarus and Lithuania. It's been criticized by some states as a hybrid attack. It's been described as a hybrid attack. I recall that last year there was a situation with Turkey, which the EU described as unorganized, causing of migrants to cross over. Would you also agree that this is a deliberate, organized strategy by the Belarusian government on a kind of hybrid attack? Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. I can perhaps refer to what Commissioner Johansson said yesterday in Lithuania. She described this as a severe act of aggression from the Lukashenko regime, one that is designed to provoke. And as you know, more broadly, we firmly reject attempts by non-EU countries to incite or acquiesce in irregular migration towards the EU and to instrumentalize people for political reasons. And the EU is fully supporting Lithuania through operational, financial and diplomatic means.
Thank you. Prochainement, c'est Anne-Laure, s'il te plaît.
Allô? Est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Oui.
Oui. C'était à propos toujours de la migration, mais concernant l'Afghanistan. Je voulais savoir si, étant donné que Washington a promis d'accueillir des milliers de réfugiés afghans supplémentaires, est-ce que c'est quelque chose que l'Union européenne peut envisager aussi de son côté? Et est-ce qu'elle l'envisage? Merci.
Merci Anne-Laure. Je pense qu'il est difficile de comparer les annonces américaines avec la situation de l'Union européenne sans entrer dans le détail de la situation américaine. Je pense que l'engagement des forces américaines en Afghanistan crée une situation spécifique concernant les visas humanitaires qui n'est pas forcément le cas pour l'Union européenne. Par ailleurs, la question des visas humanitaires est quelque chose qui relève de la compétence des États membres plutôt que de l'Union européenne. Mais je pourrais peut-être faire référence à nos efforts qui, je pense qu'on peut qualifier de véritable leadership au niveau mondial en matière de la réinstallation de réfugiés, qu'ils soient afghans ou d'autres nationalités, qui sont dans des pays tiers qui ont des difficultés à les accueillir. Et l'Union européenne est extrêmement engagée dans la poursuite des efforts de réinstallation. Nous avons continuellement augmenté, les États membres ont continuellement augmenté les quotas de réfugiés à réinstaller dans les États membres. C'est quelque chose que l'Union européenne soutient aussi financièrement de manière de plus en plus importante. Et par ailleurs, la commissaire Johansson a organisé il y a quelques semaines un forum sur la réinstallation avec notamment la participation de nos États membres, mais aussi des États-Unis et du Canada, ainsi que d'organisations internationales, afin de véritablement relancer le processus de réinstallation après les difficultés occasionnées par la pandémie. Donc nous restons extrêmement engagés dans ce geste humanitaire et de solidarité qui nous paraît extrêmement important.
Merci, Adaver. We'll now move on to Hans-Joachim, please.
Yes, thank you. It's a question back on Lithuania and the migration influx from Belarus, because the Lithuanian Prime Minister yesterday repeated a plan to build a wall alongside the border and also called again on the EU to provide financial means. Actually, the country is, I think, now seeking ways to actually change its budget and to be able to finance this wall, but it's also calling on the EU to help financing this wall, because they're saying this is a strategic weapon, as they say, that is used against the EU to exert pressure. So take into account that the EU on numerous occasions, yes, in the past room has criticized, for example, the Trump government for building up a wall. How do you assess the situation, also this fresh call to finance this sort of border fence or border wall? Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Hans. First of all, maybe a correction. It's indeed not about building a wall, but it's about putting in place a barrier of a fence. So it's a very different form of infrastructure. However, on the substance of your question, I will again refer to what Commissioner Johansson said yesterday during her visit to Lithuania. After visiting the border yesterday, she said that in the situation that Lithuania faces, such a barrier could indeed be a good idea. Now, when it comes to EU financing, I can perhaps recall that the Commission supports border management in Lithuania, both operationally and financially, and in fact is ready to deploy further assistance. And we are in close discussion with Lithuania about this further support. The Commission, however, does not finance fences as such. Our support is is there to support integrated border management solutions that ensure that irregular border crossings do not go undetected, and that then link to an effective and speedy migration management and asylum system. So we remain in very close contact with the Lithuanian authorities as to what kind of support exactly the EU is able to provide.
Thank you very much, Adalbert. I see that there are no more questions for you now. So I'll move on now to Angela Mauro, who had a question on Belarus. So we continue in the same area. Thank you. Angela, please.
Yes, good morning. Yeah, my question is about the death of the Belarusian activist Shoshov. I wonder if there are European initiatives or you are planning any move to ask for details and clarification, given that this summer appears to be another hot summer for the relationships between EU and Belarus. Also looking at the Olympics and the what's happening there with the athletics who don't want to go back to Belarus, and Poland who is giving shelter to this girl, basically. But my question is about the activist and the death of Vitaly Shoshov. Thanks.
Nabila,
thanks a lot. Who asked the question?
Angela.
Angela, thanks a lot for your question, Angela. Indeed, we understand that the Ukrainian authorities are conducting investigation on this case, and we expect, with the help, to understand the reason of this very, very unfortunate death. And of course, when you refer to the repatriation of the athlete that you were mentioning, Kristina Chimachukaya, I can't pronounce her name. I would like to say that the attempt to forcibly repatriate her against her own will is another example of the brutality of the repression of the Lukashenko's regime that hits all categories of Belarusian society, including athletes, and does not respect any Olympic truce. We express our full solidarity to her and commend the member states that offered her the support, and we welcome the fact that she has now been given a humanitarian visa by Poland.
Thank you, Nabila. We will now check if there are other questions to Nabila, first perhaps on Belarus specifically. This does not seem to be the case, and then whether you have any other questions to Nabila on the foreign policy. Christian, s'il te plaît.
Oui, je vais essayer. Je voudrais savoir si l'Union européenne a une réaction après les accusations portées par le Royaume-Uni et les États-Unis sur l'attaque d'un pétrolier qui a été imputé à l'Iran. Est-ce que vous avez des éléments qui vous permettent de penser que l'Iran est derrière cette attaque, et est-ce que vous avez une réaction? Merci.
Merci Christian pour ta question. Nous condamnons l'attaque contre le pétrolier MV Mercer Street au large de l'île de Masira à Oman. Nous déplorons le décès d'un citoyen roumain et d'une citoyenne britannique et nous présentons nos condoléances à leurs familles et amis. Les circonstances complètes de cette attaque doivent être clarifiées. Nous prenons note à cet égard des évaluations menées par les États-Unis et le Royaume-Uni et Israël. Et de telles actions contraires à la sécurité et à la liberté de navigation dans la région sont inacceptables. Les parties concernées doivent éviter toute action qui serait préjudiciable à la paix et à la stabilité régionale, et l'UE, évidemment, continuera à suivre ces développements de très près.
Merci. Jacobos, s'il te plaît. Please.
Thanks, and thanks, Nabila. Since we're talking about Iran, I would take the chance to ask whether it's correct that Enrique Mora will attend RISE inauguration this week. Thanks.
Jacobo, for your question. Indeed, the EES Deputy Secretary General Enrique Mora will attend the inauguration on behalf of the HRVP. As you know, it is crucial to engage diplomatically with a new administration and to pass directly important messages. As coordinator of the GCPOA, the HRVP's key priority is to resume negotiations in Vienna and to facilitate the way back to full GCPOA implementation.
Thank you. Checking now if there are other questions for Nabila. This does not. I see. Angela, please, if you want to come back to the issue you raised. She has something in the chat.
Yes, now the mic is working. Okay, yes, I just wanted some clarification on the criteria to give the first tranche of the 13% of the funds. I know that it's given to the member states who have signed the agreement, but if you can clarify the criteria, because now I have a moment of confusion on this. Thanks.
Thank you. I don't think
it's
this
not for
question
me.
is for Nabila. So thank you very much, Nabila. There are no more questions for you today. Angela, if you could please clarify what fund you are talking about?
Talking about the funds of the Next Generation EU, the funds you were talking, the announcement, today's announcement for the first tranche of the funds to Luxembourg, Portugal, and the other one, I don't remember. Anyway, I wanted to know the Belgium, sorry. Mm-hmm. Belgium, Luxembourg, and Portugal. Wanted to know the criteria on the basis of which you decided these first three countries to give the funds. I know that each member state has to sign a deal, I mean the last deal to have the funds, but if you can clarify this point, please.
Thank you. That would be a question for Ariana, please. We can't hear you, Ariana. If you could check your mic source, please. We'll just try for a moment. Because I see, Ariana, here your mic source is not correct. If you could check that, please. Would you try again? On and off. We'll just hope it works. Ariana, we can't see you, we can't hear you. If you want to just try one more time to see if it works. Okay, she will try to change her connection. So while she's doing that, maybe we will try to see if there are other questions to anyone else in the meantime. I know that Paula, your question was on the for Ariana as well. So I'll try with Jennifer, please. We saw you briefly. Yes, please.
You can hear me? Yes. Great. It's a question for Stefan or whoever is covering for him on vaccines, I think. Can you confirm what officials seem to have said off the record that the European Union, the Commission, has now agreed to pay more per shot for Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. And can you give further details?
On this one, well, we've indeed seen the press reports, but we don't comment, and we never have commented on the prices as such, because we consider this confidential information, and therefore we are not commenting on those leaks nor on the prices. However, from the start, what is important for the Commission in this work on the vaccines is to concentrate on really making sure that our member states have the most efficient and the most secure vaccines, and in a timely manner. And that is something which is really driving us in our negotiations. And indeed, there are more ongoing negotiations with the different providers to make sure that that we have a continuous supply of those. And when you refer to the price, then I have to say also, of course, this is just one of the aspects that we are looking at when we are doing those negotiations with the companies. We also look at the production capacity, at the technology used, the delivery schedule, the experience gained from the previous deliveries that we have with these companies, and so on. So shortly, no comment, but try to give you a little bit more of the context and background, what we're looking at in these negotiations. Shall we try now with the next question? That would be Paula, please.
Yes, hi again. Is Ariana there? Because my question is for her.
Then we can try if she's here, but it seems to be an issue with the mic source. Okay. But perhaps we just now concentrate on these vaccine questions, if there are any others, and then hope that Ariana gets her system working in the meantime. Anne-Laure?
Oui, vous m'entendez?
Oui.
C'est bon. C'était à propos du prix des vaccins. Est-ce que vous pouvez confirmer que l'augmentation du prix est liée à l'adaptation des vaccins aux nouveaux variants? Et concernant cette clause de confidentialité, étant donné que c'est quand même in fine l'argent du contribuable européen, qu'est-ce qui justifie cette confidentialité? Et est-ce que pensez-vous de la position de Clément Beaune qui propose plus de transparence avec une vérification, avec une instance indépendante et avec une vérification par les parlementaires européens aussi de ces contrats? Qu'est-ce que vous pensez de ça? Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Bon, par rapport au prix que tu as fait référence, qui ont été, comment on dit, leakés, qui ont été distribués, pas par nous, dans la presse, nous ne faisons pas de commentaires sur ce genre de choses. En ce qui concerne nos négociations, où j'ai expliqué que dans nos négociations, nous avons plusieurs critères lesquels nous payons attention et considérons importants, c'est-à-dire aussi prix est certainement un de ces sujets, mais il y a aussi la vitesse de délivrance, l'efficacité des vaccins, sécurité, etc. Donc nous regardons sur plein nombre des dossiers dans ces négociations. En ce qui concerne la transparence, bien sûr, les experts des pays membres, il y a une équipe de pays membres, des experts des pays membres qui fait partie de ces négociations, et il y a aussi les briefings que nous faisons régulièrement. Donc, c'est ce qui est clair, que les États membres sont véritablement notre partenaire dans ces négociations, et ça, je pense, c'est clair déjà depuis un an que nous faisons ces négociations. We'll check now again if Ariana's microphone is working and if you'd like to add anything on that, Ariana. Doesn't seem to be. It should work, but it doesn't seem to. Okay, then we take the next question from Sarah Wheaton, please.
Is this working? Good, okay, thanks. Yeah, so following up on the vaccines, you mentioned several criteria that you're considering in the new contracts. Is improving supply of vaccines to poorer parts of the world part of those considerations? And how would you respond to? Does the broader Commission share the concerns by Ambassador Borrell, who expressed concern that supplies are not being given to Africa quickly enough?
On that one, indeed, we are working heavily with the companies, with our member states, as well as with the COVAX facility to make sure that there is enough vaccines for everywhere in the world. As you know, to complement the COVAX effort, President von der Leyen announced that Team Europe will be sharing more than 200 million doses of vaccines secured under the EU's advanced purchase agreements before the end of this year to low and middle income countries. And an important part is indeed working with industrial partners that you were referring to, which are manufacturing vaccines, to make sure that we have available doses. I'm just checking if my colleague Ana Pisonero would like to add anything on that.
Hi, many thanks for the question. So maybe indeed just to recall, as Vivian has explained, that in general the EU's advanced purchase agreements, one of the criteria for negotiating as well with the pharmaceutical companies was of course that they would also be in a position to also produce vaccines for other parts of the world. I think that we've already had in several occasions the chance to explain how the EU is fully contributing and playing its part in order to lead a multilateral response to the COVID-19 pandemic, in cooperation of course with the WHO and other key partners. That the EU has exported half of the vaccines that have been produced also in Europe, so as many as those that have been delivered for EU citizens. On top of it, the Team Europe is of course a lead contributor to the COVAX facility, which is of course leading the efforts to ensure universal and affordable access to vaccines in the rest of the world as well. And we have mobilized close to €3 billion as Team Europe for this. And as Vivian has also mentioned, of course, to complement COVAX's efforts, because of course we all realize that we need to speed up effective and safe vaccination everywhere. That President von der Leyen announced that Team Europe's commitment to share 200 million doses by the end of the year with partner countries. Now you know that member states can of course share and donate directly with beneficiary partners or through COVAX. Our preferred option is of course through COVAX, and we expect that a majority of the 200 million doses will be delivered through the COVAX facility. And I think it's also very important to note, not only the efforts that Team Europe is doing, in the short term, indeed, to help, increase access to safe and effective vaccination everywhere. But we're also thinking, and also working on the next steps. And in particular, I think it's very important to recall, our 1 billion Team Europe initiative that the President announced as well in the Global Health Summit in May in Rome, precisely to help our African partners, increase its capacities to produce vaccines, but also medicines and health technologies. This is an initiative where, of course, we're also working very much and intensively, of course, with our African partners, but also, with the broader international partners, including, of course, WHO and COVAX and others. And you've seen already, the first announcements that have been made in the recent weeks in order to support, also production capacities in Africa. We've announced the first deal already to support in Senegal, we're very confident that more will come shortly. And of course, this is also a very important part of the work that Team Europe as a whole is actually, working on. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. We now have a question in the room, please.
But it is not on vaccines.
Then no question for the moment. We'll come back to you later. Please keep your hand up if it's on the vaccines. And Paola, please. We had you briefly, but then we lost you. Yes?
Sorry, no, it's still the same question, so I left my hand up.
We will come back to you.
That's fine.
Tommaso, please.
Yes, good afternoon, Tommaso Gallavotti, It's just a question on vaccines, if I may. It's the usual question, but on the third dose, on the possible third dose or booster dose of anti-COVID vaccine, because I've seen that the British and German authorities are starting to make real plans to deliver third doses at least to some categories of the population. I wonder if the Commission has any recommendation or advice to give to Member States on this subject. Thank you.
We will check now if Ariana would want to come in on that.
Hi, do you hear me now?
Yes, we can, please.
Yes, we can. Oh, finally. I'm so sorry about it. I'll keep my video off so at least we face less risk. So what I can say on the third doses, and actually it's a question that we have touched upon also last Thursday during midday. So we are aware that there might be a need of a booster vaccine. And this is why one of the reasons why we have signed, for example, a third contract with Pfizer-BioNTech on the 20th of May for additional 1.8 billion doses. So we want to be ready if the doses become necessary, and this is why we have also exercised the option of additional 150 million doses of our second contract with Moderna. However, we continue monitoring the situation together with the European medical agencies, and as always, all our decisions and steps will be scientific based. So for the moment we are preparing, but we look for advice from the European Medical Agency on the way forward based on scientific evidence.
Thank you, Ariana. Jennifer, please.
Jennifer, please.
You talked about vaccine production and that being one of the factors to consider in the new contracts. Can you say, or can you clarify, is it the case now that all vaccine production, including the components, will now be done within the European Union going from now on in all contracts signed by the EU? Is that the case? And if so, is that a lesson that you have drawn from the AstraZeneca experience? Thank you.
Thank you. Ariana?
I am not sure I have fully grasped the question, Vivian. Apologies. I think it's about donations, right? If they are present in the contracts? No.
No, I think it was. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer, but I understand it was on the issue of production in the EU or not in our contracts. I don't think we comment on such details on the negotiations in our contracts. Basically, I think where we are is that. We have these negotiations with the companies, and once we have reached an agreement, we will issue a press release. But for the moment, we have nothing more to comment on these ongoing negotiations with the companies. Thank you. I see that there are no more questions here on the vaccines, so I would pass the floor to you, please. You have to push the button, I think. Yep.
Now, yeah, this is Maria García Cernota, Público. The Spanish government has just reached an agreement on the expansion of El Prat Airport in Barcelona. So I'm wondering if you are following the project, especially taking into account the environmental impact on the Delta area, and if you are concerned that it's non-compatible at all with the Green Deal ambitions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Indeed, we have seen the news on the construction of these new facilities in the Barcelona area. And there I have to say we have, of course, legislation in place when it comes to the environmental impact assessment that have to be done before any major projects that might have any implications on the protection of environment, be it on the water, be it on the soil, be it on the national habitats. And this is indeed the primary responsibility of the national authorities to ensure that there is correct implementation and enforcement of the applicable EU legislation in these cases. So this is where we are for the moment, but we are of course looking into it and seeing what the situation is. Thank you. I think we will now move on to the questions by Paola, please. You will try to come in a few times. Go ahead.
Yes, hi again. Thank you. The question is for Arianna. It relates to talks between the Italian government and Unicredit for the sale of Monte dei Paschi, include the sale of non-performing titles. My question relates to what does the Commission require from the Italian government in this transaction? Are there any specific aspects of law that you're going to verify? And do you require Italy to notify this deal to the Commission? Thanks.
Arianna? Try, please. It should work. I think on the system it looks quite compatible. So please go ahead.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you. Okay, great. I had already replied by myself, apparently. So, Paola, this transaction has not been formally notified to the Commission. And as you know, it's always for the companies to notify to the Commission a transaction if it has an EU dimension. So at this stage, we wouldn't have any specific comment on it, given that it has not been notified.
Thanks a lot. Tommaso, please. Paola, sorry, I see that you have a follow-up.
Thank you. Yes, it's not a question of whether it's been notified, it's a question of whether the transaction reaches a deal, the deal reaches a dimension for which the Commission would want to scrutinize it, and what aspects of it would it scrutinize?
Arianna?
I'm checking if you hear me, because I never know.
Yes, please.
Okay. So, as always in merger control, it's not for us to assess whether a transaction has an EU dimension. It's for the companies. So this is not a question that has to be asked to us, I believe.
Thank you. Tommaso, please.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for the floor. It's a follow-up to the question asked by my colleague, Paola Tama. It's always on Banca del Monte dei Paschi di Siena. I know that you can't tell that much, but I just wonder if the Commission might consider, a prorogation of the deadline, which actually was never confirmed, of the end of the year, for the Ministry of Finance to leave the capital of Banca Monte dei Paschi di Siena, because this is a recurring many politicians in Italy are asking for a prorogation of this deadline. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Arianna, please.
Okay. Vivian, You're nodding, okay, you hear me? Good. So what I can say is that the deadline to complete the privatization under the commitments has not expired. And indeed, the Commission cannot comment on the exact deadline, which is considered as confidential information. We are closely following the recent developments reported in the press. But as always, it is the responsibility of the member state to comply with state aid commitments, and it is for them to propose ways to fulfill such commitments.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to the questions on the recovery fund. Please, Angela.
Okay.
Now we lost you for a moment. Could you try again, please?
Okay. Now it's okay. Okay, my question was about the pre-financing of the recovery national plans. You announced that today the first 3 countries who's going to have the 13% of the money are Belgium, Luxembourg, and Portugal. If you can clarify what kind of deals the member states have to sign still and with whom to have this money. This is my question, basically.
Thank you, Angela. Hoping you can still hear me, Vivian.
Yes.
Give me a sign. Okay, good. Sorry, but now I'm terrified. Okay, so also picking up on the question you had asked at the beginning. So the order in which member states will receive the pre-financing payments depends on the order in which the completion of the financing and loan agreements with each member state takes place. So this is fully in the hands of member states and depends on the speed of completion of their national procedures for the signature of financing and, where relevant, for the loan agreements. Perhaps what I can add is that all 16 member states for which the Council has now approved the implementing decisions have requested pre-financing payments. So following the Council's approval of the Commission assessment of the Recovery and Resilience Plans, the Commission must complete financing and, where relevant, loan agreements with the various member states. We are in contact with the member states for which the Council implementing decisions are in place in order to agree these documents, and the next step is for member states to sign the documents in accordance with their own national procedure, which is different, of course, member state from member state. For some member states, it's a matter of days. For other member states, may take longer. We will sign the financing and, where relevant, loan agreements once we have received a signed version from the member state. And once the loan or financing agreement has entered into force, we will arrange with each member state the pre-financing payment. We are determined to proceed very swiftly with the signature of these agreements to facilitate the swift disbursement of the pre-financing payments once, of course, the member states have completed the procedure on their side. And what I can add, perhaps, is while the regulation provides that the Commission should do so to the extent possible within 2 months, we're actually aiming to do this in a matter of days following the agreements enter into force. And this is the first 3 that we have pre-financed today, the 13% pre-financing, indeed, as we had said at the beginning, are Belgium, Luxembourg, and Portugal.
Thank you very much, Ariana. I see, Angela, that you have a follow-up.
Yes, please. As Italy has the biggest plan, can you tell us if for Italy it's a matter of days or weeks or more for the signing of the deals? I mean, thank you.
So, Angela, I'm afraid we cannot comment on the timing for a specific member state to receive pre-financing. In general, as I have said, the first pre-financing payments were expected for early August, and the first 3 have taken place today. And we expect to continue with the disbursements throughout the month of August, as soon as member states complete their relevant national procedures, which will allow them to finalize the financing and loan agreements with us. As As I have said, by the regulation, we would have 2 months to complete the pre-financing, but actually we have found a way to make sure that the procedure takes days to facilitate the receival of the funds by member states.
Thank you. So there will be more news on that one coming up. Paola, please.
Thanks again. This relates to the Polish recovery plan. Last week, you refused to tell us what was keeping you from approving the Polish recovery plan because it was still within the assessment period, which expired on August 1st. So now that the Commission has exceeded the 2 months which it gave itself to assess the Polish recovery plan, can you tell us what happens now? So how long the Commission will need and to do exactly what in order to approve the recovery fund? Thanks.
Thanks. Ariana?
So on Poland, the Commission is continuing its assessment of the Polish Recovery and Resilience Plan based on the criteria laid out in the Recovery and Resilience Facility Regulation, so the 11 criteria that we so often mention in the press room. The engagement with the Polish authorities on this process continues, and we are working to conclude the assessment as fast as possible. We continue working constructively, as we have done with all member states, to make sure that the Polish plan lives up to the objectives and the requirements of the Recovery and Resilience Facility Regulation.
Thanks a lot. Paola, you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you. 2 things. One is, so are you going to request an extension, or are you just going to talk it out with Poland as long as it's needed? What is the plan exactly? Is there a new deadline? And the second thing is, on the Polish side, spokespeople from the government say that everything is agreed and the delay is because Brussels bureaucracy doesn't work during summer. So it's only on your side, and basically there's nothing left to discuss. Do you agree with the Polish assessment? Thanks.
Thank you, Paola. Taking it from the second question, as always, I'm afraid we will not comment on comments. What I can say is that during the whole assessment period, we have acted in close cooperation with Poland with the aim of clarifying any open question. This process will continue to ensure the assessment against the objective and requirements of the regulation can be completed. And let me remind you that these exchanges are entirely normal and expected part of the assessment procedure as foreseen in Article 19 of the RRF regulation. So what I can add is indeed, as I have said, that we aim to complete our assessment as quickly as possible. We are in contact with our Polish counterparts. It's foreseen by the regulation that we have the possibility to seek additional information in order to allow us to complete the assessment based on the famous 11 criteria I was mentioning before.
Just to reassure, of course, colleagues are hard on work on all of those recovery issues, and further proof, if needed, is again the news we've put forward today regarding the pre-financing. We have a question from the room, please.
Thank you. It's Tomasz Bielecki of Deutsche Welle and Gazeta Wyborcza. Yes, but since the deadline did pass last Sunday, I'd like to ask the specific question whether either European Commission or Poland has requested the extension of the deadline, because the regulation of Recovery and Resilience Facility has also deadlines or possibilities of the extensions in it. So the question is whether the request was submitted by Poland or by European Commission. Thank you.
Thomas, Ariana.
Thanks again. I'm afraid I won't have a lot to add. As I said, we are working constructively with the Polish authorities to conclude the assessment as fast as possible. It is in our mutual interest to arrive at a point when the Commission has all necessary information at its disposal to actually conclude the assessment.
So you're right, when Poland submitted the Recovery and Resilience Plan on the 3rd of May, the Commission and the Polish authorities agreed to extend the assessment period by 1 month, which was until the 1st of August. During the whole period, we have acted in close cooperation with Poland with the aim of clarifying the open questions and requesting additional information on the measures included in the plan where necessary. This process will continue to ensure that the assessment against the objectives can be completed. As I said, this is normal part of the exchange foreseen by the regulation, and we're working to complete our assessment as quickly as possible.
Thank you very much, Ariana. I'll check if there are any other questions on the Recovery Fund. This does not seem to be the case. Then I go to Sarah Ann, please.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, great. My question is on trade, so it's from Miriam, and more specifically on the EU's position at the WTO fisheries subsidies negotiations. Developing countries are calling out the EU because they see its proposal as allowing harmful subsidies as long as there are some measures in place to replenish fish stocks, which they see as a loophole. What's your response to this? How is the EU's proposal not maintaining the status quo? Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. And so the EU's goal in this negotiation is to reach an ambitious agreement. The mandate as laid down in the UN Sustainable Development Goal 14.6 must be our guide for the WTO fisheries subsidies negotiations. Helping to secure the future of global fisheries is of high importance, and it shows that the WTO can deliver meaningful results. While the EU sees areas for improvement in the text that is currently on the table, we will continue to discuss constructively on this basis in the final leg of the negotiations. On your specific question, we are aware that there are certain concerns. We do believe that we should tackle those subsidies that are harming, such as fuel subsidies. There are other kinds of subsidies that are not harmful. So we are engaging constructively in this negotiation to ensure we achieve sustainable fisheries as the final result.
Thank you, Miriam. Any other questions for Miriam on trade-related issues? This does not seem to be the case. Thank you very much. And then I see that there was a question from Fabio on cybersecurity. I don't know if you're still connected, Fabio. Okay. Yes, I see that you have a mic issue. So we move to Sarah, please.
I guess. As far as the COVID digital certificate, we've seen some reports about people being able to falsify the QR codes or hack into the system. And so I just wanted to hear if there are any plans to do anything to shore up the security of these passes. And also just in general, you know, now that we are in the thick of travel season, if the Commission is kind of monitoring how these green passes are working, what your assessment is, if we've seen any kind of broad issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. That would be a question for Sonia, please.
Good afternoon, Sarah. Thank you very much for your question. Regarding the different news related to the fake certificates, digital certificates, we are aware and we are taking that very seriously. What I would like to emphasize at the start is that we need to make a differentiation between the EU digital COVID certificate, which is secure through the QR code, which is based on public codes, which belong to the authority which is certifying, and then another one which belongs to the authority which is reading the code. So it's a system which is secure and tied. And on the other hand, we need to, of course, focus or differentiate related to the paper certificate or the certificate which is proving the vaccination process or the administration of the vaccination. And those fake certificates or news are more related to the second type of certificate, which relates to the proof of vaccination. And Europol is putting an effort and following the situation closely, because this is something which relates to a fraudulent activity and which is criminal based on national law.
Yeah. Thank you. Fabio, please, let's try if it works now. We can see you, but we cannot hear you. No, even if you come closer, we cannot hear you. There seems to be an issue with your mic source. No, it doesn't seem to be the correct. Yeah, maybe if you, okay, you can come up, you can come back also to Sonia bilaterally afterwards, or if you're very quick in typing, to come in the chat. But while we wait, to just, so yeah, come back to Sonia bilaterally on this one. Well, I see that there are no more questions for us today, so yes, we do. I'm sorry, please. You have to push on the button there and wait a moment and it will turn red. Give it a moment. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Peter from the Austrian Public TV. I have a question. I don't really know whom to ask, but I'll just go ahead if that's okay. I have a question concerning the EU Commission's flight slot rules for airlines for the winter season. This decision wants airlines to operate at least 50% of their available slots. Otherwise, they would lose their slot. And for example, the International Air Transport Organization has very much criticized this decision as environmental and financial lunacy, because they might be forced to operate empty flights to keep their slots. So I have two questions on this. What does the European Commission want to achieve with this decision? And secondly, how is this decision in line with your green agenda, if even airlines fear that this would cause unnecessary environmental damage? Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot on that one. We will have to come back to you, and we will do that, because indeed, I mean, we've just come out with these new proposals, including in the area of aviation, how to make sure that they are much more environmental and climate friendly, and to push them towards more sustainable, using more sustainable fuel and so on. We came out with those just in the middle of June in our package on the Green Deal implementing measures. And certainly the slots regulation was something that was reviewed during the Corona crisis. But we'll come back to you, with your permission, very fast with more concrete details on that one. Catherine, please.
Permitted to speak. Hi. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, very well.
Okay. I kept on getting a message that I was not permitted to speak. Anyways, so my question is about a report today, a further analysis of a journalist's phone in Hungary, Brigitte Sikas, who was writing about misuse of EU funds at the time. So the analysis of her phone showed that it appears that the Israeli spyware, Pegasus or NSO's Pegasus spyware, was on her phone. And Vice President Jourova has previously said that she considered this sort of spyware used against lawyers and journalists as NGOs as unacceptable. But I'm wondering, given that we're talking about somebody, a journalist who was investigating the misuse of European funds, is there any further action being taken on the EU side? I mean, are you in contact with the spyware company, or with Amnesty International's security lab, or anyone else, or any other authorities, I don't know, Europol or Olaf, I mean, to further investigate what is happening here, because obviously that this journalist was selected, one who was specifically looking at abuse of EU funds and writing about it at the time, it must raise your concerns.
Thank you very much. That would be a question for Adalbert today. Welcome back.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to be back, although on very difficult and unfortunate issues. I can perhaps start by recalling that we're aware of the media reports regarding the spyware used by some governments around the world, and it goes without saying that any such spying on media, if true, is simply unacceptable. Media should be able to work freely, independently, and without fear anywhere in the European Union and beyond, which is something that lies at the heart of media freedom and of democracy. It is, as you certainly know, it is member states' authorities who are under an obligation to oversee and control their services to ensure full respect of fundamental rights, including protection of personal data. And in addition to what you referred to in terms of the statement by Vice President Jourova, I can also refer to what President von der Leyen said on this matter in Prague on the 19th of July, which is that free press is one of the core values of the EU, and that if these revelations are true, this is completely unacceptable and against any kind of rules. Now, to come to the heart of your question, whether the Commission is doing something further on this, I can indeed say that, yes, we are looking into this matter. However, I can't tell you anything more in detail at this point. I can only repeat to stay tuned.
Thanks a lot. We'll see if you have other questions now on that topic. We'll try with Jack, please.
Sorry, it's not about that topic.
Okay, just give us a moment to see if there are any other questions on that topic. This does not seem to be the case, so please go ahead, Jack.
Vaccines slightly earlier. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now, yes. I think we missed a moment from the beginning, but now it's fine.
Okay, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating a question already, but I want to know whether you have details. I've seen the reports in Politico about this 7.9 million vaccine doses being delivered as donations. Do you have any clear numbers? Is there a set of numbers that you can give us today, the freshest set, of how many have been donated through COVAX and otherwise, and how many are exported? If there's any fresh numbers, that'd be really useful for me. Thank you.
Indeed, we have covered this topic already, and I think Anna gave an extensive overview of what the figures are and what the situation with this are. So I will send you the link afterwards with that, if that's all right. Now we have a question in the chat here from Fabio about the cyber attacks that affected the health digital system of Lazio region in Italy, which contains sensitive data, including about vaccines and political representatives. One of the hypotheses, according to Fabio, is that the attack came from Germany. As you know, cybersecurity will be a challenging issue in the next future and requiring a European response. So please, Sonia.
Yes, many thanks, Fabio. Indeed, we have seen the reports in the press about the cyber attack of the Lazio region health portal and vaccination network. The Commission is taking the issue very seriously. We are striving to ensure a very secure and trustworthy online space for citizens and businesses, which would mean as well a resilient space which is secure against cyber attacks. Specifically, this is the case for strategic sectors such as energy, transport, health, and financial services. The healthcare services and the sector is very essential, as we know, and it's undergoing a digital transformation, which makes it even more prone to cyber attacks. And especially in the context of COVID, we have noticed that more and more cyber attacks are really directed against this sector. So the Commission is taking different actions to ensure the cybersecurity of this sector and also of other essential sectors. For example, already in 2016, we have adopted the NIS directive, which is the first EU-wide legal framework for cybersecurity. And in December last year, in the context of our EU cybersecurity strategy, we have put forward a revised and modernized legal framework of this directive, which enlarges the scope of the entities which are covered, also the obligations which are put on these entities to ensure safe and cyber-secure environment, and also the cooperation between the various national authorities in charge of cybersecurity to make sure that at EU level there is a very strengthened framework and cooperation. We have also, in 2019, adopted a Cybersecurity Act, which relates to the cybersecurity of products and services, which also supports this framework. And we are also in constant cooperation in the framework of different committees and working groups, including in the health sector, to make sure that there is a safe online environment. And what I could add as well is that in terms of financial support, we are also providing funding from the current MFF. We have funding from Digital Europe, from the Horizon Europe as well, from the Digital Europe program, and also from Horizon Europe for research in the sector of cybersecurity, and specifically related to small and medium-sized businesses, as they also need to cope with such challenges. And also in the framework of the European Defence Fund, we support European cyber defense solutions. So our approach is quite holistic, so we have policy, legislative, but also funding measures.
Thank you very much, Sonia. I look around at the screen and make another attempt to close this for today. Thank you very much for having been here. And our next midday is this Thursday, coming Thursday. Thank you very much. Have a nice afternoon.